It's episode 519 of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. On today's podcast, I'm going to be picking my 2022 Hall of Fame ballot, including a few former Rangers, one that wasn't a Ranger very long, and one that will definitely give you a little bit of a surprise. Coming up on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Brice Paterik, here today with episode 519. Gosh, it's wild to think I've done 519 of these episodes. But first, thank you guys so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. If you're not already, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Brice Paterik. Follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube. The goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers by opening day. I know it's ambitious. We're at 440 right now, but I think we can do it with y'all's help. So this is the next to last episode of the year. Tomorrow's the last day of the year. And I figured, you know what? Why not pick a Hall of Fame ballot on tomorrow's episode? I'm going to be doing a look back of the 5 best and worst moments of the season. There were a lot of them. And I don't like looking back at the season because it was so awful. But, it'll be the last day of the year. So it'll be time to look back on the worst full season the Rangers have had since the 1970s. Now, we are here today to talk about the Hall of Fame ballot. There's a lot of controversial opinions, a lot of people, a lot of former Rangers on the ballot, and a lot of guys that have fraught history with the game of baseball and then their post baseball career. There's been a lot of steroid talk and a lot of guys last year on the ballot, so we won't be able to hearing any more about Curt Schilling and his Hall of Fame case after this year. This is his last year on the ballot. It was Barry Bonds' last year on the ballot, and Roger Clemens' last year on the ballot, as well as Sammy Sosa. So all those guys, this is their 10th year on the ballot. So after this year, they're either in or they're out, so we will know for sure about these guys. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. The first person on my ballot, there are 10 spots on the ballot. I know you might not know that by looking at some of these guys who are actually the ones who are voting on their Hall of Fame ballots, the ones that votes actually count, and they'll turn in a blank ballot. Like, you know what? I don't feel like any of these guys deserve it. You know what? I feel like those people who are turning in those blank ballots don't deserve to vote at all because they're a percentage of the vote, and the percentage matters, and these guys have to get a certain percentage to actually get in. They got to get 75%, and they can make it up to, I think, 10 years on the ballot. And if you don't get a certain percentage by certain years, then you get taken off the ballot. And these jamokes who don't watch baseball anymore and don't actually care about baseball and don't vote for anybody except for Derek Jeter, like, what? Why do they still have a say on this ballot? It makes me angry every year. And I think, oh, okay, next year I won't get mad about it, but I will, especially when they think about not making Adrian Beltre a 100% first ballot Hall of Famer, because that will be criminal and it will make me very, very upset. But anyway, I'm starting my ballot at the top with the best player in baseball history. I'm just going to call him what he is. I know he took the steroids. I know his records have an asterisk next to him. I don't care. Everyone was taking steroids in that era. Not as many of them got caught as him, but this guy was just unbelievable. Barry Bonds, a left fielder, in case you don't know who he is. He's a 7-time MVP, 12-time Silver Slugger, 8-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time batting title winner, 14-time All-Star. This guy has 762 career home runs. He was absolutely insane. Even if you take out all the Giants years, this guy was already an insanely good baseball player from 1986 all the way through 1992 when he was with Pittsburgh. He has a career on base percentage of 444, career slugging percentage of 607, career OPS of 1051. Absolutely bonkers. Just some of his MVP seasons are just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he won an MVP, actually 2 MVPs when he was with the Pirates before he went to San Francisco. And in 2001, it's still, every time I look at Barry Bonds' baseball reference page, it's just the most ridiculous thing, and I just can't help but be in awe. I think 2002 was probably his best year. He only played in 143 games. He still hit 46 home runs in there. 2001 was when he set the record with 73 home runs in a single regular season. And on base percentage of 515. This guy was absolutely insane. A 1379 OPS. The next year he had a 1381 OPS. He only played in 143 games that year. The year that he broke the record for most home runs this season, only played in 153 games. He still could have had 9 more games to hit home runs. He could have hit 75. This guy was just an absolute legend. A 2,558 career walks. Like, he's just unreal. And 688 of those walks were intentional. Like, it's just, he was just ridiculously good. And I don't care about the steroids with him. I mean, he was the poster child, but he never got suspended for it. And he was absolutely unreal, even if you take out the steroids, which I know you can't do. But he was just such an unreally good player, and not having him in the Hall of Fame is criminal, and I don't think he's going to get in. I really hope he does, but I don't think he's going to, because baseball writers are so weird, especially the really, really old ones that don't actually watch baseball anymore and probably haven't in decades. So they're not going to vote him in. They're going to be the reason that he doesn't get voted in. So it's fine, but I think we should still all appreciate how ridiculously good Barry Bonds was at hitting baseballs very, very far. Another guy who is inexorably tied to the steroid era, a 7-time Cy Young winner, an MVP, a 2-time Triple Crown winner, a 7-time ERA winner, an 11-time All-Star, Roger Clemens. Just an absolute hoss, a guy who he grew up and went to college in Houston, and then he went to Texas, and he is a good old Texas boy from Pasadena, Texas. This guy had an incredibly long career, played all the way until he was 44 years old, and was really good in his 40s. Made an all-star selection 3 times after turning 40. His age 40 season with the Yankees, his last year with the Yankees, his next to last year with the Yankees. He finished his career with the Yankees, but had a really, really solid year, 3-year stretch when he turned 40 to 41 to 42. Those were 2 years in Houston. His first 2 years in Houston, he was incredibly good. At age 42, he had a 187 ERA in 211 innings with 185 strikeouts. This guy was just ridiculously good and ridiculously consistent. I mean, 7 Cy Youngs. 7! That's absolutely bonkers. Also, the fact that he was a 19th overall pick, kind of insane that he turned out to be as good as he was. He spent a lot of his time in Boston. I never really thought of him as a Boston guy because I wasn't really paying attention to baseball back, in the first 3 years of my life when he was actually there. I also kind of forgot that he was in Toronto because he played there in 97, 98. I just think of him as a Yankee and an Astro because that's when I was alive and paying attention to things around me. But this guy was just incredibly good. Again, another guy who I think is probably going to be left off the ballot. He had 2 10-plus WAR seasons. Absolutely insane. A 10.4 WAR season in 1990, his age 27 season with Boston, and an 11.9 WAR season, his age 34 season in Toronto in 1997. This guy was just ridiculously good for a long, long time, many decades. This guy had the longevity, he had the absolute peaks, and he continued his dominance for so long, which, again, it's easier to pitch to throw 95 or however fast he was throwing at age 41, 42, 43 when you're on steroids. But still, even before all that stuff, he was just an incredibly good pitcher. 2 seasons with a sub-2 ERA, and both of those seasons were while he was in the frickin' American League. Actually, no, I forgot. Houston was in the NL at that point when he was there in 2005. But still, a sub-2 ERA in the freaking AL, that just does not happen, especially in the AL East with how, well, actually, that was kind of the downtime for the Yankees, but still a very good division, and he is an incredibly good baseball player. But I'm going to take a look at the rest of this ballot, including quite a few former Rangers. But first, I want to tell you guys about Built Bar. It's almost a new year, which means New Year's resolutions. If you're going to get fit, eating healthier, make sure to include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but I honestly think they taste better than a candy bar, depending on the candy bar that you're getting, because Built Bar is absolutely delicious. If you want to eat something healthy, but it gets so boring by like week 3. I mean, it's January. It's a miserable month. It's hard to eat healthy and cut out all these vices like people want to do in January. January is rough enough. Like maybe add one more vice. But if you're really serious about the cutting down and losing some weight, like most people are, Built Bar is a great way to do that. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, it can, it almost counts as a workout. It's basically the same thing. There's so many flavors to choose from. They're always coming out with new ones. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And we are back looking at my 10 Hall of Fame selections. And of course, my apartment complex wants to mow. I'm not even sure if you guys can hear that. I can most definitely hear it very loudly going right outside my window as soon as I start recording a podcast, because that's just what they do. I feel like they just like wait and listen, see if I'm recording a podcast. I'm like, all right, it's time to mow the lawn. But we're talking about my lawn. We're talking about Scott Rowan, who is the next guy on my ballot. He is a 7-time All-Star, 8-time Gold Glove winner, Rookie of the Year, 2006 World Series winner, and a Silver Slugger. This guy played a long time, started his career with the Phillies, then played in St. Louis for a few years, went to Toronto, and then finished out his career playing all the way to 2012, his age 37 season in Cincinnati. Had a couple of All-Star appearances there, and really solid career. Nothing like crazy peaks, but he was just really consistent for a long time, and that's why he gets my vote. His best season by far was his age 29 season. He was an All-Star in 2004. He had a 9.2 WAR season. Never had another season. Actually, he had one more season with a WAR above 6, which was his second full year in the big leagues in Philadelphia in 1998, which it's kind of wild. He did a 6.7 WAR season and only finished 20th in MVP voting. They really didn't know that much about WAR back then, and it should have factored in a little bit more. But anyway, his highest WAR season was a 9.2 WAR season, and I lost my place. Of course I did. There it is. Yeah, 2004. He just had so much value that he only finished 4th in MVP voting, but man, he was so stinking good that year. 34 home runs, a batting average of 314, and on base over 400 at 409, and slugging 598. This guy was ridiculous, and he was super consistent as a defensive third baseman. I think he should win more Gold Gloves than he did, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. He is a very good player, and I think he's going to get selected into this year's Hall of Fame. Another guy who had a crazy long career, retired in 2012, and also played for the Rangers. Just 1 year, though. It's Andrew Jones. This guy was a center fielder. He was a vacuum in center field, playing ridiculously good and consistent defense while also hitting a crap ton of bombs. A 62.7 career baseball reference for 1,933 hits, 434 home runs in his career. He also stole 152 bases in his career. Career OPS of 823. He's got a 5-time All-Star, a 10-time Gold Glove winner, and his best season, which I don't know what the heck happened this year. In 2005, it was probably a Barry Bonds year, because Barry Bonds just won a whole lot of MVPs. No, it was Albert Pujols' best year. But Andrew Jones had an incredible year in where'd we go? This is 2005. Albert Pujols had an 8.4 WAR season as a first baseman, which is just ridiculous that he can do that. But anyway, Andrew Jones had a 6.7 WAR season, 51 home runs, 128 RBI. His on base was just so much lower than Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols hit 330 that year with a 430 on base and a 609 slugging percentage, whereas Andrew Jones, even though he hit 51 home runs, he had an on base of 347 and a slugging percentage of 575. That's a 922 OPS versus Albert's, which was over 1,000. But again, Andrew Jones is providing this super great center field defense. He did so for many years in his career. Had a 17-year big league career. Played 2008 with Texas, or 2009 with Texas. Not his best season. Only played in 82 games that year. Hit 17 home runs, a 782 OPS that season. And where'd we go with the WAR? Where'd we go? Yeah, his worst season WAR-wise outside of his final season and his first 31 game stint in the big leagues. Only 0.3 WAR that year. Not really great, but again, they only paid him $500,000, so kind of a bargain still. I don't know. But anyway, We have one more. Actually, we have a couple more former Rangers. Three more. Four? Four more former Rangers? How many are we at? We're at number 5 on this list, so we're going to have to power through a little bit. But coming in next on my list is Alex Rodriguez. Yes, I know you might hate him, but he is a 3-time MVP. I know he was suspended for steroids, which the other guys weren't. And but he was just such a ridiculously good player. It's impossible to leave him off your ballot. He has 696 career home runs, 3,115 hits. I believe he's the RBI leader for his career with 2,086 RBI, career on base of 380, career OPS of 930, career WAR of 117.5 according to Baseball Reference. This guy was just ridiculous. He was so incredibly good. Even in that 3-year stretch with the Rangers where they just decided not to spend any money on pitching, they spent all of it on Alex Rodriguez, and they did have some other stars around him. But again, it wasn't enough, so they traded him for basically nothing to go to the Yankees and to just not have to pay that contract. It's fine. It's fine. He's a D-bag. He was a really good TV commentator for the first year until he turned into Old Man Yells at Clouds. Still such an incredibly talented player for such a ridiculously long time. From 1994 all the way to 2016, a 22-year career. I don't know if you count the 2014 when he was suspended, but again, this guy hit so many major milestones and had his 3 of his best seasons while in a Rangers uniform while playing shortstop. It was just ridiculously talented. I'm surprised that he only won one MVP while he was in Texas, because all 3 of those seasons were ridiculous in MVP caliber. But again, this guy was stupid talented. He may be a D-bag. He may be associated with the steroid era, but he is just too talented to leave out of your Hall of Fame if you actually want to have the best baseball players in there. But I've got a few more former Rangers to put on this ballot, to shoehorn my own agenda. But first, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, and BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the college bowl season all the way to the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. If you want to put some money down on, where'd we go? There we go. Pointy is hard. The Alabama Crimson Tide to win it all. I feel like it's a pretty sure bet. I mean, it's not going to pay out a whole lot because everyone knows that Alabama is better than all these other teams, but it's fine. It's fine. This is the ad part of the ad read where I get to brag about my teams being actually good, and maybe putting some money down on the Rangers being good next year, and maybe put some money down on this podcast being good. I don't know if you can put money on my podcast being good, but I don't know, you can just keep listening and subscribe or whatever and tell your friends about it. But they got basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2020-21 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I spent a lot longer on those first guys than I meant to, and I'm just going to kind of power through some of these other guys, especially the non-Rangers, for the final 5 spots in my ballot. Number 6 on my ballot is David Ortiz. He is a 3-time World Series winner, a 10-time MVP, a 7-time Silver Slugger, an ALCS MVP, a World Series MVP, and the best DH to ever do it. 55.3 career WAR, 514 career home runs, on base for his career of 380, OPS of 931, OPS plus of 141. This guy was just ridiculously consistent. He never won an MVP because, he was competing with the likes of Alex Rodriguez and, Derek Jeter, and he didn't play a position, so that kind of hampered his ability to get all that. His best season ever was his 2006 season, where he finished 3rd in MVP voting, kind of insane, had 54 home runs, a 413 on base percentage, and slugged 636. That is a 1049 OPS for a full season, 151 games. Just insane. I also kind of forget that he was on Minnesota for the first few years of his career, played 15 games as a 21-year-old in 1997 for them, and he came over to Boston in 2003. I knew he played for Seattle. He was at least a minor leaguer for Seattle for quite a while, because I remember hearing stories about Alex Rodriguez and some of the other stars, seeing him hit in spring training and saying like, oh wow, that's absolutely insane. But anyway, he got released by the Twins in 2002, and then in January of 2003, the Boston Red Sox picked him up, and he had a completely storied career. It was great. It was wild that he did so well hitting at such a right-handed hitter friendly park as a lefty. But again, really stinking good player. Next guy on my ballot is Gary Sheffield. Positions listed as a right fielder, third baseman, and shortstop. This guy played everywhere. 9-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger winner, got a batting title as well, and won a Major League Player of the Year award as well. Finished top 10 in MVP voting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. This guy had a really long career, 22 years that is, and hit 509 home runs in his career, 60.5 baseball reference for 907 OPS, and 253 stolen bases. This guy was a do-it-all kind of guy and did everything very, very well, and had a really, really long career with so many different teams. I believe 7 different teams, with the Marlins, Dodgers, Brewers, Yankees, Braves, Padres, Tigers, and Mets. This guy played for everybody, and he played very, very well when he did that. Now, moving on to another former Ranger, a first baseman who's not been a Ranger in some time, but did have some really good seasons in Texas before being traded for the wave of prospects that became the backbone for the Rangers' big, long run in the 2010s. That's right, I'm talking about Mark Teixeira, guy who played for Texas from 2003 all the way to 2007 when they traded him to Atlanta, who only kept him for, a season and a half, then traded him to LA, and he did not do well for Atlanta, but the prospects he gave the Rangers new life. He was incredibly good with the Rangers. Had only one All-Star season, though, which is kind of wild to me. His rookie year, he didn't win Rookie of the Year, even though he had an 811 OPS with 26 home runs in 146 games. He finished 5th in Rookie of the Year voting. Kind of insane how good the other rookies must have been that year. But his best season in Texas had a 43 home run season, played in all 162 games in 2005. His first All-Star season, he was 25 years old, got a Gold Glove, a Silver Slugger, an All-Star appearance, finished 7th in MVP voting, hit .301, on base of .379, slugged .575, while hitting 43 home runs and 41 doubles. This guy was an extra base hitting machine, 409 career home runs, 408 career doubles, an on base of .360 with a slugging percentage for his career of .509. This guy was the epitome of great defense. He was a switch hitter with a great on base and a great knack for hitting the crap out of baseballs. At his peak, he was absolutely unmatched, and that 43 home runs was his career high that he never eclipsed, even though he was, a switch hitter who mostly hits left in Yankee Stadium for the bulk of his career after Texas. So kind of fun to know that he peaked in Texas and they still were able to trade him and get a crap ton for him. And he was the last first round pick. The Rangers did well, picked 5th overall in the 2001 draft. I say that, but besides Joey Gallo, before Joey Gallo and between there were not a whole lot of first round pick successes. Now we're going to another former Ranger great. Didn't actually play with the Rangers in the big leagues, did play with them in AAA. His last stint, I believe his last stint in organized baseball, it might have been 2017. The last time he pitched in the big leagues was in 2016. I am talking about the great Timmy the Freak Lincecum, a 2-time Cy Young winner, a 3-time World Series winner, somehow only a 4-time All-Star. It's kind of insane how much he cratered right after his incredible peak. But his peak was just so good that I have to put him on the first. You win 2 Cy Youngs, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer. You win 3 World Series in that span as well, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter if your career cratered after 28 because you were such a freak and all of the things that people were worried about, and his weird delivery. He's like a Ferrari. You throw one little grain of sand in there and it'll ruin everything, and it did, which is a real shame because him during his peak was just so incredibly fun to watch. His best year, I believe his first 200 plus inning season. My favorite year to watch him was 2008. He was playing for the Giants. Obviously, he was playing for the Giants every year except for 2016 when he pitched in 9 games with a 9.16 ERA as a 32-year-old with the Angels. But he had a ERA of 2.62 that year in 2008, his first All-Star season. He struck out 265 players in 227 innings, an ERA plus of 168. This guy was just stupid good. That was his first time he won a Cy Young award. He also won a Cy Young award the next year when he struck out 261 in 225 innings with a 2.48 ERA, an ERA plus of 171. This guy was just ridiculously good at his peak, and he kind of fell off really quickly. But again, when he was dominant, he was ridiculously dominant. And I still have my Bart and Timmy shirt that Deer Chair made back when we thought that Bartolo Colon and Tim Lincecum were going to pitch in the same rotation. That would have been really fun. But, I still have the shirt, and it's still lovely. And it still brings me happy memories. And I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. It might take him a while. I don't think that Tim Lincecum is going to be voted in on the first ballot because, there's so few guys that actually get voted in. But his peak was just so good. And I know he burnt out really fast. But again, he was just so good that you have to include him in there if you want to actually remember the best baseball players. Now we're going to another former Ranger, not a former Ranger great. This is the last player on my ballot. It is the one, the only Prince Fielder. I know what you're saying. What? This guy's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know. But in this fictitious scenario where my vote actually matters and, baseball cares about young people who like their game, this would be to keep him on the ballot because I think he is eventually going to be voted in because he had just such a great peak. But again, injuries with him. It wasn't just him falling off and, forgetting how to, pitch. It was just injuries, a freak neck injury that ended his career and took off the last 3 years of his career. I mean, by the time he hit 30, this was affecting him and they didn't really even know it until that year. He played in so many games. I talked about this on an earlier episode when I was creating a fictitious scenario that would keep Prince Fielder healthy. I mean, his contract that he signed with Detroit and eventually was traded over to Texas in 2014, the contract that he signed, it just ended in 2020. Like, he would have played that pandemic season. That would have been the last season on his contract. He is still not old. He's 37 years old. He turns 38 in May. Like, he's not that far removed. He had a 23.8 career WAR for a guy who played first base and didn't play it super well. That was just how good his offense was. 319 career home runs and on base of 382, a slugging percentage for his career of 506. That would have been much higher had the last few seasons not robbed him of his power with that neck injury. I mean, during his peak in Milwaukee, he was just so stupid good. His best season, I think, was his first All-Star season, his age 23 season, played in 158 games. So, kind of sloughing it by his standards. But he had 50 home runs that year, 35 doubles, an on base of 395, slugged 618. That is a 1013 OPS. The only year he had a higher OPS was in 2009. His age 25 season, was an All-Star, finished fourth in MVP voting that year, on base of 412 and slugged 602. This guy was a hitting machine. He had 46 home runs that year. Never hit more than 40 home runs again after that year. I mean, I think the neck issues really started to affect him once he went to Detroit. He hit 38 home runs his last year in Milwaukee in 2011, then signed a huge contract in Detroit, hit 30 home runs his age 28 season in 2012. 2013, he hit only 25. Then the injury really surfaced and he actually missed time in 2014. And I think maybe his desire to play every single game might have made it a little bit harder on him if he had just taken a few games off. And also if he had been a DH for a little bit more of that, he was just a bigger guy. And so it put a lot of strain on him. His only good season in Texas, he was an All-Star his age 31 season, 2015, his next to last season, played in 158 games, powering through all that neck injury, hit 305 with an on base of 378, but slugged just 463. That's still an 841 OPS, 23 home runs that year, 28 doubles, and 98 RBI, if you care about that sort of thing. But this guy, man, the untapped potential of him at his peak and Adrian Beltre in the same lineup, like, that 2015 team should have been so ridiculously stacked, having a Cole Hamels and especially 2016. he would have been 32, right about in his peak. If you had Prince Fielder matching like 40 home runs, plus peak Beltre doing peak Beltre things, plus Yu Darvish, plus Cole Hamels, plus all the nasty arms in that bullpen, plus some of the other guys, maybe Joey Gallo coming up and getting his fair share and being in right field. Or if Nomar Mazara just didn't do all the things, I'm not going to revisit all that what if stuff. I did a really great episode on that a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a week ago. I don't know what time is, but this guy, it makes me, he's one of the big what ifs in Rangers history and in baseball history. This guy should still be playing at this point, should still be hitting dingers. And, maybe it would be for the Rangers, maybe for somebody else at this point, because again, his contract would have been up after 2020. But he was so much fun. He was so infectious. He was just such a great staple of baseball. And it's such a shame the injuries robbed him of his career. I think he should be a Hall of Famer. He definitely would have been if the injuries didn't rob him of his entire 30s, basically. So it is maybe not as earned a vote as some of these other guys you might have wanted, but I love Prince Fielder, and I am voting with my heart, and my vote doesn't even count, so don't get mad at me. Get mad at the people who submit blank ballots. But that's going to do this edition of Locked On Rangers. I did omit a couple of big names, former Rangers Sammy Sosa and not Manny Ramirez. He did play for 37 different teams, but the Rangers were not one of Manny Ramirez's different teams that he played for. I know that it's just kind of ironic that I include some guys who got suspended for steroids and other guys who didn't. I don't know. It's just kind of a personal line, and if I had an actual ballot, I might put Sammy Sosa and Manny Ramirez on above Mark Teixeira on this first ballot, or Prince Fielder or Tim Lincecum. But who cares? It's my ballot. It's my podcast, and I feel good about those 10 names in case you forgot. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Scott Rowan, Andrew Jones, Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, Gary Sheffield, Mark Teixeira, Tim Lincecum, and of course, Prince Fielder. That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.